Welcome back, everyone, to this episode of Sunny Silver Linings. We are honored to be joined again by Ajay Kumar. He is the president and founder of SACC CPA Services, and he's going to drop some knowledge today regarding home business expense. But before we get there, let me introduce your host. He's the president and founder of the SACC American Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Sunny Kaila.
Thank you, Todd. And AJ, welcome back. Thank you so much for joining us today. And one of the common question we have been getting from our members, how does deduction work? There's so many people working from home during COVID. And one question that always comes up is, hey, what does it mean in terms of deductions when I'm working from home now from last 3-4 months? So can you talk to us a little bit about, who is eligible and how to avail this benefit and how much we can avail? So can you talk to us a little bit about that today?
Absolutely. It will be my pleasure. And thank you for having me here. So home office expense deduction depends on what the additional expense is that you are incurring by working from home. So any expense that you wouldn't have had if you did not have the home office, it's a fair business expense, including but not limited to having a separate laptop, separate printer, separate table. There are certain rules around it as how to define a home office. You can't really have a table in your kitchen or in your bedroom and claim it as a home office expense. It has to be a separate place, separately identifiable place, exclusively used for business, and it has to be your principal place. It doesn't have to be the only place. You can have multiple office locations, but it has to be a principal place of business where you are seeing the clients, the customer, the vendors, where you are having the meetings exclusively. It can't be a combined place. I have one bedroom apartment and sometimes I work from bedroom and sometimes I work from the living room. That's not acceptable. But if you qualify with that criteria, any expense that you wouldn't have had if you did not work from home, all those expenses becomes fair deductible expenses.
Yeah. So as you know, Cam normally works from home, and she has been working from home. I never worked from home, but in March I had to set up my own home office a little bit more. So there's a laptop always there to kind of log in over the weekend, but I had to do complete setup. So that I can function just like office. So from to your point, buying a computer, things that I didn't have as a proper home office setup, and I had to do that. So can you talk? And another piece there is, so as an employer, I want to learn what it means to me as an employer when I had to set that up as an employer. Who had to transition from office to home office. And like Todd, he might be probably interested in more from the employee perspective. Can you also talk to us, what it means for a business owner and what it means for an employee?
Absolutely. So from a business owner perspective, running the business comes first. If you have to set up a home office expense for yourself and even for an employee, it's a fair business expense. You have the right to pay all those additional expenses, buying the laptop, buying the workstation, buying the desktop, buying the table, the chair, whatever you need, not just for yourself, but even for the employees. So running the business comes first. You are running a business and you are doing whatever needs to be done. If setting up a home office for an employee or for an employer is what's needed, it's all fair expense for the business. The caveat that I try to use over here, Sunny, I advise clients not to pay from their personal expense or personal bank account, personal credit card, and then try to claim it as a business expense. Even if it's for the employee, I prefer as a business, if you're trying to set up a home office expense for the employee, you pay it from the business account directly. So I can clearly see the intent behind the expense. What happens, all these tax returns are filed at the end of the year, all the audits happens much later. And if the employee paid those expenses from their pocket and then the business is reimbursing it, a lot of times IRS questions the intent behind these expenses.
And how much and how to apply?
Well, sure. There are two methods when we come to how much can you claim as a home office expense. So the first method is the standardized method, where you have $5 per square feet up to a maximum of 300 square feet. So maximum you can claim is $1,500. This is the standard method per person, per tax return. The second method is the actual method, where you can see this is my exclusive home office and the home office size is 300 square feet and the total home size is 3,000 square feet. So I'm using 10% of my total home for the home office expense. In that regard, you can claim 10% of the utility, 10% of the rent or mortgage interest, not the principal, and 10% of the telephone bill. All the expenses are reasonably allocated proportionately to the home office size that's being used exclusively for the home office. This is the actual method. In most cases, actual method will give you a much larger number than the standard method. The caveat is if you use the standard method, IRS does not have the right to request a receipt as long as you can justify the home office is exclusively identifiable place and you have the measurement over there. IRS will not ask for the utility bill, the phone bill, the mortgage interest. IRS will not ask for any proof of expenses in a standard method. In an actual method, IRS has the right to ask for all these expenses as show me the total expense. How did you measure it? What's the percentage portion? And is it exclusively identifiable place? Is there any other activity that's being run in that business during that time? So you have to be concerned about it.
Sure. And Todd, did anything, I know you have been working remotely, did anything change where you had to come up with extra expense? Do you have any example of something that you purchased, something that you had to do to pivot when COVID happened? And that could be an example for Ajay to look at and see, okay, is that item eligible, not eligible?
Absolutely. Sonny, like the better microphone, the better webcam, the lights, the green screen background, because, I'm working full time from home. We're not going out on the road. So the way I did my job changed, where it's before it was just on the phone and then traveling. So AJ, my question for you is, even though I did not buy these, I didn't expense this through the company, I paid for it out of my pocket. Are these still valid business expenses? Because I use them exclusively for my day-to-day job.
Well, sure. If you are using all these equipments only for one job, let's say, for example, you have a W-2 job and you work for one employer, then all these additional expenses that you did not have earlier, they are not deductible for you. Under the tax reform that we saw in 2018, up until 2018, up until 2017, before 2018 tax reform, we had a place on Schedule A where you could push a lot of business-related unreimbursed expenses. But under the tax reform bill of 2018, all those expenses have been eliminated. The caveat here is in two conditions. First, if you are working for more than one job, then you are technically a self-employed person as opposed to working for a W-2 job. Or second, if you are being compensated on contingent basis, meaning depending on how many videos you do, we are paying you, or what's the quality of the video. If you are being paid on contingent basis as opposed to fixed salary, then we can classify you as a statutory employee. The perfect example for the statutory employees are realtors and the insurance agents, even though they are employee, but their performance bonus, their compensation depends on the number of deals they do, and they work for more than one client. So in these two conditions, you can claim these expenses. If you have a W-2 job as an employee, say for example, a lot of people who used to go to New York to work are not going to New York. They have set up a home office expense, even though they had to buy a laptop or create a separate office over there, but they are a W-2 employee. They have one employer, one W-2 coming from one company. In that situation, home office expenses are not tax deductible.
Sure. So Ajay, I have one question. That is, especially for a lot of members that we have for Six Chamber, they have retail businesses. And one of those examples is a lot of gas station owners. Is there anything that you see with your clients where they are in the gasoline business or other retail businesses where something changed that you want them to be aware of that change, or something that can help them from the same subject perspective?
Well, absolutely. So a lot of these people are self-employed, and they used to go to this office where they had a small office, even though they had the gas station, or even if they had a retail shop, they had a small room where they had a lot of cameras and a lot of monitors to monitor the activities around them. And a lot of those people are trying to set up that monitoring activities in their own home, in their basement. So being self-employed and being trying to run the business the way it was run, all those home office setup expenses, including buying the cameras, buying the monitors, buying the setup, all those expenses are going to be tax deductible expenses.
Got it. And is there any deadline? Is there anything else that we need to know as business owners or employees?
Well, from a business owner perspective, as you mentioned earlier, the expense must be paid through the business directly in order to show the intent that you really thought it was a business expense, as opposed to paying it from your personal expense, personal credit card, and then trying to getting it reimbursed. The second thing, if it's not paid through the business credit card, you want to maintain proper receipt. If you're working from home, you do want to measure roughly the size of the home office expense. As much as possible, you still have the right to pay for all these expenses from your business expense. Say, for example, you are using 300 square feet of your home office. Instead of claiming the utility, the mortgage interest, claim 300 multiplied by 5, $1,500 as a standard expense. And on top of it, you pay the laptop, the table, the monitor, everything to the business card anyway. So you have the double expense. You use the standard expense for $1,500, and even though all other out-of-pocket expenses were paid directly to the business.
Great information, Ajay. If our members want to get in touch with you, or they want more information on this subject, how can they ask their specific questions on this topic?
Absolutely. So they can always search Form 8829 on IRS website that has a lot of information about home office expenses. They're more than welcome to call me directly or write an email to me. We'll post our information at the end of this podcast. And mention SACC. The consulting is absolutely free. I'll be happy to look through your situation, understand your situation, and give you a specific advice as what can be claimed, what cannot be claimed.
Okay. Thank you so much. And Todd, do you have any other question before we close?
AJ, I know it can get a little confusing. Do you have a document or anything we can share with our viewers that they'll be able to download to help them, figure out what these expenses are, if something is or is not, and so that kind of get them started in the process before they reach out?
Absolutely. So we have a table that justifies, in your situation, if certain expenses are deductible or not. We'll post that expense table, expense justification table in our resource section. Please download it, go through it, and if you still have questions, please do not hesitate to write back to me or call back.
Excellent. Thank you, AJ. And for the viewers, we're going to make sure that we have a link to that document directly in the description of the video here. So, Sunny, why don't you wrap it up for us today?
Thank you, Todd. And AJ, as always, so knowledgeable, experienced person that you are, and always there for our members. We can't thank you enough for everything that you do for the Six Chamber. And we truly, truly appreciate your help, your support, and you adding value to our members. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Sunny. Thank you.
AJ, you are such a wealth of knowledge to business owners and employees like myself. I really look forward to these sessions we record with you. I always learn so much. What else, what do you have on the horizon for us, and our viewers coming up?
Sure. In our next episode, we'll talk about why people get IRS notices, what are the different type of IRS notices, what to do if you got the IRS notices, and what can you do to avoid getting such notices. So stay tuned next week.
IRS is a scary name, and you don't want to miss our next podcast.
And to the viewers, thank you for sharing your time with us. We do appreciate, and we hope you'll take the time to watch some of the other episodes here of Sunny Silver Linings, and we'll see you next time.